Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight from the Great Midwest, I have RDV. And tonight we are discussing Battle of the Damned, a.k.a. Dolph Lundgren versus Zombies. And I have to sit there and say, Dolph Lundgren versus Zombies sounds like a pitch that you would walk in the studio for financing and say, look, I've got a script treatment here. Dolph Lundgren versus Zombies. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but what's the hook? Well, Dolph Lundgren versus Zombies, and we're going to throw battle bots in there. What do you
Yep.
think about this movie here? Your initial take, RDV, because that's what we get.
This is my second time watching this. So
Oh,
I watched this back in 2013 when it came out because I saw the trailer for it. I forgot who produced it. It was Red something. I think it was Red Band.
yeah,
And
somebody.
I was like, I've seen some of the other movies before that they did, and I was like, Dolph Lundgren straight to DVD, zombies. And I'm like, okay, let's see how this is gonna go. And then I was like, oh, there's robots in there too. I was like, it's gonna be a low budget, but I'm like, you know what? I'm in for it because it's like I've watched his other movies. Dolph Lundgren's done it. He's not a bad actor. He usually takes whatever role he can get, because you know what? They're probably paying him pretty damn well to star in the movie to begin with because he's still a big name, but not as big as some of these other people are. But
You know,
uh, I
we're
I,
gonna have to
I
talk about that here with this movie
this was
because
I
that's
want
a
to
really
say
important thing about the type of movies he's
yeah,
in.
and I want to say though when I watched this is before we got Korean Chuck Norris, before we got Train to Busan. So as I was watching again this movie the second time again, I was comparing it to that as far as the zombies, how they
Mhm.
run stuff, moved. So I thought it was actually pretty decent. It wasn't like World War Z where the zombies climb atop each other. So I thought, and I think this was produced or filmed in definitely overseas.
Of course,
Yeah,
Kaplakistan,
yeah.
Money Stand, one of those places.
I thought it was actually for being low budget. I was actually done pretty well.
Yeah, one thing we talk about with movies is, what do they look like? Because it is a visual thing, and this movie actually does look a little bit above average as far as the tone of it and the look, and it definitely doesn't feel like it's an American film, and that's a good thing for this. And I really actually thought you had a good point there about the fact that this was before, even though zombies have been so hot for 20 plus years now, and even go back to the 80s, there's enough zombie movies, but it hadn't hit critical mass till, I don't know, around 2000 or so. But this is before, just right after Walking Dead was starting to get hot. It was like,
Yep.
to your point, it's before Train to Busan and all the Korean and just Asian zombie movies and everything else, everybody else's take on it. Unfortunately, the problem with that is I think people have reduced themselves to the role of when using zombies to just making them all pretty much the same and saying, well, zombies are just a way we can tell the really important story, which is the way humans interact. And it's a little bit dull. And then here, we talked about Army of the Dead last year, right? Okay. I didn't like it at all. It's big budget, it was flashy,
Yep.
but it was annoying to me. And it really just felt very forced. This movie feels very B level, maybe even C level and all that. Dolph has something that you just cannot take away, and that's charisma. He's legit super smart. He's legit a physical freak. He's the total package. And the problem I have with Dolph Lundgren is I think he's great when he's not the lead and he's surrounded by a bunch of people that do well. Because the problem this movie has is it starts off pretty entertaining, and and later on we meet people that he's supposed to help. He's supposed to save this lady that's trapped inside the city that's been cut off. Rich industrial lady's daughter. That's the hook for him, and she's surrounded by people and a really stupid, dumb, bad guy that totally overplays every scene. And I just keep going, I wish Dolph, even if he was in B movies, had like just better writing or a better B level cast or something because, you know, he's watchable. And that's the thing that's frustrating. And to add to that, I think he's happy enough at his age in his mid 60s to say, I still want to work out. I've got a couple daughters in their 20s or whatever. He's a family man kind of guy. So he can go work a movie for a month like this and
Hmm.
make some money, do okay with it, and not have to stress himself out. So I know he's going to be in the Expendables 4 whenever that decides to come out. But other than that, it's all these direct to video on demand type movies. And I wish he would have a little bit of a renaissance while his name is still out there now and he's able to do so because I hate to say that his career is underperformed because he's done a lot of things, but the reality of it is nobody would know about this film unless we were talking about it tonight, right? I mean, Dolph Lundgren versus zombies. Boom, that's the hook. And everyone younger is probably going, "Who's Dolph Lundgren?" But you know him. I know him. People on the Xtreme Movie Show know him, and it is a decent watch. It's not a movie that's got really too much bad with it.
No,
Y-
at a
y- You
at
know.
a small budget, $8 million was the budget.
Yep.
It was filmed in Singapore, so that's where it really originated. And then they filmed it in there and released it both here in Singapore, also in India too as well. Apparently the director had did a movie before this called Robo. Christopher Hattons is the director. He did a movie back 2011 called Robotropolis, and this was originally going to be a sequel to that.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's where you get the robots from,
Because that's the BattleBots thing we talked about.
which were
Dolph,
cool.
well, here's the thing: the movie starts off with Dolph and his crew, and his crew, are being chased by a bunch of zombies, so they're in a bad situation. They hide for a second while realizing that everything's gone to hell in a handbasket, but then they get to the extraction point, well, because they're in the middle of some sort of action oriented sequence going on, but then he sends everybody off, right? And he's like, "No,
Hmm.
I'm gonna stay, I'm gonna get the job done," and you're like, "Good, we're getting rid of this crew of people that I don't care about, don't want to have to care about, and I don't want them to share screen time with Dolph." Dolph goes alone solo with it, and not before one of his teammates gets bitten by a zombie, so he's getting ready to turn, and and zombie's like, before he turns into a zombie, I'm laughing because it's funny. This is unintentional kind of humor that if you're watching Dolph Lundgren versus zombies, you're gonna get. He pulls out his knife and he goes, "Sorry." He goes to stab his
I know.
buddy.
So I love that. He's like, oh well, sucks to be you.
Yeah, and it's I wouldn't call this a horror movie. Some people might. It's more of an action kind of movie to me.
It was.
To me, it plods a little bit because we meet a group of people, including a few hotties, with a guy that they're all cooped up in this hotel, and the main dude's a bad guy, and you can tell right off the bat he's supposed to be an antagonist, but he's wimpy, and it's like, really? And of course we get. I just have to say this because this is the weak sauce that I can't stand, even in a B-level film. One of the ladies has got the pregnancy test. She finds out she's pregnant. Oh my gosh, because when you have a zombie apocalypse, the old Catholic thing of pulling out body shots or facials, it just isn't something that crosses a writer's mind because it's like, really, all these
Well,
little forced things for drama don't really help to me. We
they
want
add
Dolph
more to
Lundgren
what you're
kicking
talking
ass.
about. Is
I know.
actually she's actually it's Melanie Zanetti who plays Jude. She's actually the reason Dolph's team was there.
Yep.
Her father, turns out he's the one that started the whole outbreak there.
That's a shocker.
Her
I didn't
boyfriend,
see that coming.
her boyfriend, Reese.
Reese, man, that's such a punchable name.
I know, but it's whatever. He was there working on the during the thing, and then she was supposed to be there because apparently she is a dropout, wasn't working well in school, so he was upset with her. So her father had brought her along, but it seems like her father just ditched her and just left her there with this Reese guy.
Let me ask you seriously. I know you're not married with a kid, but if you had a daughter and she was going with a guy named Reese, wouldn't you disown her too?
Actually, I don't really hate the name Reese, man.
It's just one of those names you're like, Reese? Look, what's Dolph's name in this movie?
His name's Max Gatling.
Yeah, and so they never say Max or Gatling. They say Max Gatling. I'm like, oh my God, that's a much better name than Reese. Come on.
Nah. Actually,
Reese is a heel name.
Nah. Actually, Reese is my nephew's name, so.
Well, I'm sure he's a great guy.
He is a great guy. It's awesome. Anyway, so we're getting off track here. So Jude, because she didn't originally want to go because she hates her father and she's basically she's a rebellious teenager. I guess I don't know if she's in her teenage. She's in her early 20s anyway, and so basically Dolph wants to bring her back, but he even tries to kidnap her, take her while they're on a supply run. And Duke basically is one of those guys.
Come on.
He's Duke
on the other hand is a great name.
So anyway, so this guy is called Duke. He's in charge of the little group of survivors. He comes off as a little bit creepy as it is, especially with the ladies.
Oh, absolutely.
There's this one chick in here, Abby or Amber. Anna, and she's pretty much, you can tell she's pretty much in shock, still in shock. It's been months. And he tells Dolph Lundgren's character and Max, he's like, hey, um, we've had many people like you go through this. We've been here for months. There's no way out. Every person died. I say I'm tired of losing people. He's a coward. He's tired. He doesn't want to die alone. He doesn't necessarily want to be in charge. He just wants people to be around him. You know, the better his survival. Because right now they're living comfortably in this little state here with a gate in front of them, though, so the zombies can't get in. Um, and yes, he doesn't like change. He's done with it. So he's afraid everyone's gonna leave him, and his cowardly ways gets him killed later on in the movie. But I just gotta say though, like the guy, yeah, he's not meant to be like a very bad villain. I guess
Right.
I guess I
He's
guess
not the
he's not
cackling
in your
evil
sense. Yeah,
do
yeah,
gooder or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. But he's the kind of person that, well, hey, if it's my survival, I'll lock you out so you die. And that's what he kind of does to this other girl. We'll call her tracksuit girl, because her character's name is Lynn. She's always in a pink tracksuit, and
Tracksuits are still good, and I'm glad you
yeah,
brought that up.
and the fact that she actually she doesn't like him, doesn't trust him. Most people don't trust him. Jude, who just basically wants to be left alone. Yes, she is pregnant, and I guess that's kind of what turns is Max, because Max was just there for the job. That's all
Yes.
he is. He was gonna kill his own buddy. He said sorry. He's gonna snipe him anyway because he's well with the mission. And so it was interesting to see that she mentions, like, it's like, oh, so you're not just a machine. You actually are a human being. You actually care about, because she wants everyone to leave, unlike her father just wants her. So it was a very low budget film. Very generic. You could watch this once and then forget it. But I was surprised. I was looking up the main girl. I was like, has she been in anything else since this? Apparently, she was in recently Love and Monsters 2020.
No.
So she actually was in another movie since then. Otherwise, she does a lot of voice acting and stuff, and she does some other indie stuff. But I was shocked, because it was like, because I watched this a long time ago in 2013. I was wondering, like, who is this cast? Because these were a cast of nobodies when I watched this.
Well, sometimes I think you can catch the lightning in a bottle when, especially when you don't have the constraints of Hollywood put it on you as far as doing things. So I wanted to touch on your thought there about the quote unquote bad guy who's a bit of a coward. I really kind of felt that, if they took this in a direction where, not that he was super cowardly and cowardly like he's going to screw you over like we've seen so many times, but if they did more of the, hey, we have been here for months, we have lost a lot of people, where it was just an expression of, say, battle fatigue, and they were just tired and didn't want to try to put forth the effort emotionally, physically to escape the city. I thought that could have been interesting because you could have taken Dolph Lundgren, action superhero stud guy, and go, wait a minute. Now he's going to be in a movie where he's going to have to help these people and not use what we know him to be, all his skills being
Mhm.
physical and all that. And I thought, once in a while, if I feel like a movie almost teases you with the concept of a really good idea, that I just go, that, that's the kind of thing I want to see like Dolphin. And unfortunately, we love JCVD on this channel a lot, and Chuck Norris and all the 80s guys and all that. That's why we do a lot of action stuff on Tuesdays. And I think JCVD's, for a long time, we've admitted, has kind of been down this path where he's the type of guy to put a little bit more European, self humor at himself and poke fun at himself and be okay with it. And that's fine. But there's that part of you, I think, that goes, man, I know Dolph is like 60, 65, same thing with JCD. You want them to get that one or two little roles left where they just can fucking knock it out of the park, because this movie, it is B level. No, no, we're not trying to convince anybody that otherwise. But there are elements to this because of where it's filmed, low budget. As you said, kind of like a nobody cast, but since then people have done
Mhm.
things. It's not a movie that you go, God, this one character is so annoying, or this is really so dumb, or this CGI is so bad. You're going, man, this is a competent movie, and it's frustrating because in a good way you go, it could have been better. And normally with B movies, you just go, "Ah, it is what it is, and I don't really care anymore." And that's kind of how we're going to leave it at the movie. But that's the thing with Dolph Lundgren. He's done a lot of things where when he has somebody like JCVD with him, and you say Universal Soldier, it elevates them both. And I just wish he would find that right connection there too,
Yeah.
because you're right. I had forgotten about this movie, did not know anything about it. And when I went and I rewatched it this afternoon, I went, God, this feels so familiar. And then when a robot came on screen and he was talking to him towards the end or whatever, I'm like,
Yep.
I know I've seen this. I've seen it on, Tubi TV or Chiller or something, or L-Rate television here in the United States, something that would play these kind of movies. And I'm glad they're there because we can always go, I'm going to move for a Dolph Lundgren flick. Let's go find one of these video on demands from the archive and get on that. And I just wanted to touch upon one thing real quick too as we get ready to wrap up. But you mentioned before about how it's set in a city, and it was kind of a little bit before some of the major zombie things.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too because there's elements of it that reminded me of a show that another friend of ours here on the Extreme Movie Show, Professor Pixel, and I do on Sundays, which is called The Prisoner. We're reviewing season 1 of that Patrick McGowan show, and there's a lot of elements in there about what it's like to be trapped. What does it mean to try to work really hard at your freedom? And I felt like there's always these elements in some of these types of movies that Army of the Dead in no way tried to touch upon, despite its big budget nature. But in this movie, you have that a little bit with the group of people that he meets. So it kind of like starts off with a good hook. Then in the middle part of the movie, you get the dynamics of the group and all that, and then towards the end you get the resolution of them with what I'll call a happy ending. But I wanted to talk about my favorite scene and see what you thought about it and see what you had to add. There's a scene in there where Adolph's character, Max Gatling, or should we say Gatling, Max Gatling, I don't
Major
know,
Max Gatling.
Major Max Gatling. He gets chained outside.
Oh yeah, the handcuffs.
And then there's this big fight scene with the zombies coming at him.
And he's
And
just
like, you
kicking
know what?
them.
That gets you your money's worth for this movie. Where you're like, all right, I want to see Dolph do some dumb
I
stuff.
I
And I
was
thought it was kind of good.
I was surprised when I saw the scene. I was like, okay, how's he gonna get out of this? Is he gonna climb up? And then he's sitting there with his legs crossed. I'm like, that's a Van Damme move, or Jackie Chan would just have their legs wrapped around the freaking light pole and just be sitting up there waiting. You
Yeah,
know,
it's kind of cool. It's a little different, which is surprising in a good way.
yeah. And I guess, and I want to touch on this. Like, sorry, 'cause this is more. This is like this was before I Train to Busan and the Peninsula, which is a sequel. And this kind of remind. Not after watching I don't know if you watched the sequel, Train to Busan, the Peninsula one. I think we reviewed. I'm not sure, but
Yes.
there is a scene in there where the main bad guy, like he's a coward too, and basically wants to get off the island too, because he knows that they're there too. So he basically is trying to do whatever he can to get off the island as well. And I'm kind of glad that this movie didn't go that direction, because for me, for that movie, that's what kind of ruined it. Because I was just like, there's just too many people, and then the villain, towards the end, meets the same fate as he does in this movie here. And I thought this was more believable because not everybody is going to be like, a super bad person and, you know, and screw up or screw over the bad people, because not everybody has that luck. I would say this might felt more realistic in that sense.
Yeah, you do get a sense of this group of people together, exactly the way you described it earlier, where they are kind of like, yeah, we're together. We may not love each other and all that, or we may not be a group that started together and survived together, which is different. We see that a lot. It's a group of people that kind of just happen to come together because they have that mutual self-interest of saying, you know what, we're tired of trying to fight and all that. And it is fatiguing. It is a resource game at some point when you get to that. And survival games are really popular on PC because of something like that, whether it's zombies or whatever. And you get a sense of that in here. You definitely feel it where they're at too. It's not like they're living in a huge 5-star estate. I mean, they are, but you don't feel like they're living the high life. They're just biding their time because things are so bad, and they're not necessarily happy with it or even content. They're just dealing with the situation they have, but they're too tired up to go, okay, let's come up with a game plan. What are we really going to do? What's our plan for a month from now, 6 months from now? And it's one of those situations where, like in The Walking Dead, we see it almost every season. No matter who the bad guy
Hmm.
is, a big part of it is How are they going to survive? How are they going to try to create a little bit of paradise of their own? You always see them gardening in the background and working with animals and all that stuff, even though that's never a major plot line. And in here, you see them just kind of like impatient, like, yeah, we're just not going to fight. And you're right. Most
Yeah.
people, if this would happen, aren't going to be fighters. So it was a nice little contrast with Dolphin there. I just thought that they could have flipped the script a little bit and had his skill set that he brought in to be useless because these
Oh,
people, in their own cowardly way, figured out a way to survive and working together.
this
They
kind of
kind of do to get the ending
this
up there.
could have gone so many different ways. There's so many, and especially a lot of the TV shows and about zombies or vampires, whatever, and all that stuff. There's been so many different outcomes as well how people act, and this could have been like you could have had people that were these people could have been cannibals, you know,
Hmm.
the point where they're like actually like any survivors they get, they're using them and I'm like feeding on them. I've seen that before done in shows, so it's like
Yeah.
there's it for a low budget. It could have went more cliche than than it did. But I gotta say though, I said, and I'm going back to this. Like the robots give me a kick every time I watch them too. I don't even care about Reese. He's like a side. He's an afterthought. I don't even care about him. When they're in the junkyard and he's like, it's like and it's like I love how like even before actually before they get to the junkyard, when him and Reese discover the robots, he's like, what do you see? Robots? He's like, no, I see an army. And you see how they're walking down the thing, and
Yeah.
and I love how he confronts them, and then like later, like, when the zombies are attacking the robots just swinging an arm. You see the zombie go flying backwards. It's just hitting them. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like and like so later on in the junkyard, he reinforces the zombies, like, and he attaches the SMGs to one. Like, how the heck is they gonna fire the guns? I was like, it has no hands, no arms. It's just like he just welded it to his arm.
It's a bit silly.
I know, and they still don't. There's no way you can see where he's gripping the gun. I'm like, unless it's triggered by some wire or something like that.
Yeah,
But
you gotta
either
let it
way,
go
though,
at that
but
point.
it was cool because he's put all the scrap metal and the jagged spikes on all the zombies. And this is interesting to point out too. Zombies aren't all just a double tap at the head. You can shoot them anywhere. These zombies aren't normal zombies. You shoot them in the gut, they die like a regular person. So you saw this when they're firing the rapidly unlimited clips.
The old A-team adage.
Yes, yes. And you see the zombies are getting shot in the guts, the back, and then like and then the neck and stuff, and they just fall over and they die. But I gotta say there was one scene here that always gets me, and I always forget. It's when the main girl, we're introduced to her. She's in the shop. She comes across she sees the guy sitting behind the counter. The zombies are sitting there. And it's like, okay, is he dead? Whatever, did he just die?
Mhm.
Because remember, zombies move around. So in this movie, and I gotta say this is before any of the other ones I've seen. These zombies, they're dormant when there's no one around. They sit there.
Yeah.
So because in this, when she comes back, because she sees she's reaching over to get some cigarettes and be on the counter, and then you see his face looking right at her, and she doesn't know it right. That always gets me every single time. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like anybody who's ever played zombie games or watched movies, it's like you always make sure it's dead for you. You double tap, you shoot it first before you walk in the room. Who cares? I want to make sure it's dead before I turn my back on it. Screw that.
Well, one of the things with the proliferation, like we said, of television episodes of movies over the past 20 years or so, basically almost a generation now, not just with DVDs and the VHS market, but of course, video on demand, low budget movies like this, the ability to go overseas, not United States, and be free of the constraints of what Hollywood puts on you for films. There's going to be a lot of crap out there. They're just as filler. It's the whole Netflix approach, which is an approach. I'm not saying it's right, it's wrong. It's just, I think, something we can all agree on. They throw a lot of money at a lot of stuff, and just once in a while they get a good hit, and that's their model for business. And other places in the industry have maybe a different approach, and content companies are merging, consolidating. Things are still going on. There's going to be a couple more big major shifts here in the next year or two. Um, I've been following a few of them too from my stock trading and all that, and I got to sit there and say, I think with Amazon getting, I think it's MGM, there's still probably going to be one more major deal going out there, and ultimately at some point, especially with COVID over the past 2 years, you and I have talked about at length how there's a lot of great stuff that's out there that you don't have to go in the theater for. By great, we mean entertaining, and while we'll cover old movies. Whether they're Humphrey Bogart, whether they're science fiction, no matter what it is, especially if some people request it. There's a thing about, the show that we do once in a while here on Tuesday nights where we go, okay, what's now showing on Netflix or just on cable, whether it's Tubi TV or Comet's another one. There's enough out there that you can get where if you know what the movie is and maybe you don't have Prime or maybe you don't have HBO Max, you can still find something. And again, this movie is about 10 years old, so
Hmm.
certainly not new, but to your point, it's entertaining, it's digitally shot, so it's still going to look great on everybody's television. The idea of the Extreme Movie Show, investigating some of these movies, especially B-level ones, is that there are themes that come out into play. And one of them here is I gotta sit there and say, like we said at the beginning, Dolph Lundgren is a very watchable guy. So we'll go through phases where, like, we'll look at a couple movies from a particular actor's catalog, whether it's Jim Caviezel more recently, and we did that because we were doing Denzel, and we did that because we were interested in some car stuff. And it's pretty neat how we can talk about a movie that's 10 years old that almost nobody knows unless they're hardcore into it or they consider
Yep.
themselves a B-level action fan, and it's still good. It does not have to be the latest and greatest or something that's getting put in theaters today, and you can still have a good time watching it. And that's to me, ultimately, for my closing thoughts, what I'd like to say to everybody listening is that this is a decent enough movie worth watching. Is it a great film? You decide what you consider great. Now, something like Ben-Hur, which I recently rewatched, it's a great film. Is it something I'm
Hmm.
going to rewatch? No. Is Dumb and Dumber a great film? You could argue no, but is that something I could rewatch 100 times? Abso-freaking-lutely. So there's that balance between something that's technically good, which a lot of things can be today, but they're just crap and filler, or you can have something that might have a little bit of a spin to it, like a particular actor like Dolph Lundgren, or like what you mentioned before, the director here popping himself by putting a robot in it from a movie he did earlier. So fans of this guy have something to look forward to, and that might introduce them to Dolph. And it's kind of like a circle. It goes around, and you can go, well, hey, this is entertaining. What else has Dolph been in? And he's been in a lot that we haven't even talked about. Skin Trade, a whole bunch of others that we're going. One of these days, we're going to get to him here on the Extreme Movie Show. What final thoughts do you have, RDV?
Um, it's what I say real quickly on so two of the other characters in here. Jen Sung is the actor. He plays Elvis. He's the
Yeah.
guy. He has a samurai. He actually did a lot of voice acting work in the video games. He's also been on Agents of Shield. He was in Rush Hour 2. Did the stunts there.
Oh,
Kung
okay.
Pao, Enter the Fist. He was Stick Fighter number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. He
So
looked familiar.
he's been in a couple different things. Agents of Shield. And then Lydia Look is she's a tracksuit girl in here. She has a pink tracksuit on.
Yep.
She was on an episode of The Shield. She did a lot of voice acting as well, and she was most recently on General Hospital, a TV series. So I mean, and she's also Lily in Paper Tiger.
Okay. So
So
it's not really nobodies in a sense.
yeah, well, at the time they were, but I noticed that there's now they're starting to do more stuff. So I've noticed that because when I first watched 2013, I was like, these people had like nothing. Like they did a couple things and that was about it. Pushing daisies or and like one episode of of ER or something like that.
Hmm.
So it's interesting to see how they've expanded their stuff. Um, but yeah, yeah. So definitely, I'd recommend anybody who hasn't seen this movie check it out. It's available for like $1 or $2 to rent on Amazon Prime, and you can also find it on YouTube and as well the rent there. And I'm sure somebody has a uploaded version of it with Indonesian subtitles.
We by no means condone anything illegal here, and we're not suggesting that at all, whether you like to
No.
go surfing, sailing, or whatever it is. But these things do pop up a bit, and I'll simply close with, we have something here we haven't talked about in a while, and I think this movie is perfectly appropriate for RDB, and this will come right back to you. I have a tendency to try not to get really mad or upset because, hey, we're supposed to be having fun talking movies, right? And so we have a little fun with some of these things. But for me, I got really upset with a big budget release with a guy that I really like, and it just as an illustration, and my frustration was caught in the moment when I called it the Meg test, because the Meg movie with the giant shark and Jason Statham was the biggest piece of crap I've seen in a long time. And it, like, as an example, it's a movie that doesn't deliver anything, and it throws everything together and makes you think that it's a real movie, and it's not. And so I said, well, is the movie really better than Meg? Because you could argue that's technically well crafted, it's big budget, it's got all sorts of representation, from plot to being able to be watched from little people to old people and all that. It's a very safe, very vanilla, very ricey kind of film. It's a nothing burger, and it's insulting to think that people try to put that out as a good flick. And so when I put this up against the Meg test, I go, well, which movie would I rather watch, the Meg or this? And if I'd rather watch something more than the Meg, well, then it's watchable. And I gotta sit there and say, I would not rewatch this movie a lot. If I was a Dolph Lundgren fan, I would watch it, but it's better than the Meg, without doubt. Do you think it is or not?
I think it's better than Meg. I mean, I hate freaking like oceans and sharks and all that stuff, so definitely don't care to watch it again. But no, I like this because I like the zombie outbreak stuff shows. I'm still watching Fear the Walking Dead. I just love the idea, like survival horror or anything like that. You have to, and I hate when shows like, and that's what ruined Walking Dead for me. Kind of, is became more about the people and less about the zombies. I
Yeah.
was like, dude, no, the zombies are what makes it cool. And then like, you gotta have an equal balance. You can't just have like, oh, the villains, oh, the humans are worse than the zombies, blah blah blah. And like, it's like, no, I want you to freaking incorporate the zombies in there and have the zombies still be a threat. And Fear the Walking Dead stepped up because of a nuke strike. So now they have irradiated zombies, so you can't even get close to kill them. Otherwise, you get radiation sickness and you die. So
Sounds simple to do something like that,
yeah,
right? And yet
yeah,
nobody wants to do it.
yeah, and I applaud Fear for doing that. So I was like, wow, because up to this point it was dumb. But Z Nation also before that
Yes.
got
We like
created.
Z Nation. Yes.
Oh, that's such a great show.
Yes.
They decided to basically take fun of the zombie genre and have like zombies getting into like a pharmacy, where they had zombies walking around with erections. It was or just and but they also had zombies that were irradiated though. But they also had the feral zombies, the ones that could run. They were like not, they were just
Super freaks.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. It was yeah. So it was kind of interesting. They turned it into a comedy / horror action show. Um, it's so when you can take a great zombie genre and change it up a little bit and make it fun. It doesn't have to be scary, but you can make it more like entertaining. That's all you have to do. And I think this movie actually did it by adding the robots in it though, because without the robots, you got to go straight up horror. And with having the robots, it lightens the heart, lightens the mood.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because these characters, you took out the robots, there's no way they're gonna survive. Maybe Dolph Lundgren, and that's about it. That boy Reese is gonna die.
Yeah, Reese is going to get punched, and they're not daddy-in-law wannabe's not going to want to take him back. Ugh, Reese. All right,
Yeah.
guys, there you have it. Battle of the Damned, Dolph Lundgren, and a bunch of nobodies that may have done a few things here and there too. Decent flick. Check it out. Let us know if there's anything you want us to cover here, as we'll be doing that. We're going to be back on track on our schedule. I'd been out with some personal matters I do attend to. Nothing major. I'm glad to be back. So our schedule is as follows. It's still Tuesday nights, the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern, as well as Sundays when we get together, 7 p.m. Eastern, but also 6 p.m. sometimes live as well. We're reviewing currently episode, I believe, 4 of The Prisoner, and then the 3 of us, RDV, Professor Pixel, and myself, your host, Rob, tackle something together. So looking forward to just keep going with all that. This stuff's pretty good. It's a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys for checking us out, especially the newer ones. I can't stress enough just how awesome it is when people retweet what we have as far as that, and people are showing up constantly. It's a lot of fun to grow this channel into something a bit more like of a community where people just have fun talking about movies, enjoying it, and not shitting on things and hating on them too much. I like to talk fashion, I like to talk food, and I like to talk a little economics, especially movies, when we have a lot of fun with it too. So definitely check us out on the other shows that we've done too. We have reviewed a lot for whether it's Twin Peaks, whether it's a bunch of Chuck Norris movies, some old horror and sci-fi. We've got the millennial 20-something Professor Pixel that does something, and of course RDV, you're from the great Midwest, so you're just a great 30-something guy, and I'm the old man of the group, an 80s child. So it's a nice, interesting conundrum to be in. The three of us from different areas of life talking about stuff that we all enjoy and you guys listening to as well, and that's movies. So thanks again for listening, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, have a good night, and remember, stay extreme. Brains! Brains! Send more cops! Good night, everybody.